22 embassies and consulates are closed due to terror threats from al-Qaeda. Gary Bernson is a former senior CIA operations officer and chief of station. He joins us on the phone. Jeff Lanza is a retired FBI agent. All right, gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Gary, I'm going to go to you. Although embassies have been closed in the past, it's never been this big. It's never affected so many embassies and consulates. What do you think is going on?
Well, I'll say this. During the 2.5 decades that I was in the agency, I saw closures across the Middle East frequently in the 1980s and the 1990s. Maybe not since the al-Qaeda era and after 9/11 have we seen widespread closures, but in the early days when we were fighting Hezbollah, we would see a lot of this.
But never like this, Gary.
Well, no, I'd seen across the Middle East embassies closed, across the entire Middle East. It just wasn't a big news story because the media didn't have the reach in those days. You have great reach now.
Yeah,
and you're getting
media reach, Gary, media reach or not, it's never been this many. Do we know how specific it is? Because I'm hearing tonight that right now the information is that the major plot is underway, that there is a terrorist team to carry out the plot. It is selected and is in place. Do we have any way of knowing whether or not this is a human source that's telling us this, or it's an electronic intercept?
Well, the intelligence community is not going to let out exactly the nature of their source. But if they have this coverage, they'll have people on the ground working with local liaison services to try to do this, to stop this. And understand also, when we close embassies like this, it's not just for the protection of Americans. We're trying to protect the foreign nationals, the local population that is frequently standing in lines out in front of our embassy. Look, when we lost our embassy in Nairobi,
I got to tell you, that frustrates me. Gary, that frustrates me. It frustrates me. I'll tell you why. We want to protect them. We don't even protect our own Americans in Benghazi, but I don't want to go besides the point.
You'll have hundreds of Foreign Service nationals killed in these attacks as well, hundreds.
Okay, how long, and let me go to Jeff Lanza. Jeff, there is this week, we find out that so many news agencies has spoken to the guy that your old agency, the FBI, has said is the main target, Ahmed Abu Khattala, that he's the brains behind the Benghazi attack. He's flipping the bird to us. I mean, why isn't the FBI talk to this guy?
Well, ultimately, the FBI doesn't really have to report to Congress or the media who they talk to in investigations. And it makes sense that they would have talked to him. He could be lying. The FBI could have already talked to him. There may be strategic reasons why they haven't talked to him. There may be some external influence that is affecting their ability to do this investigation.
Okay,
there's all these possibilities
external
right now.
influence? How about the fact, Jeff, look, I was in law enforcement for 30 years. How is it that the FBI doesn't get to the crime scene for 3 weeks and they're supposed to secure it and understand it? And a month later, there are documents found that the FBI didn't bother to take with them, seeing as they were only there for 12 hours to begin with, 3 weeks late. I mean, how can you even take their part in this lunacy?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not a secure place. Obviously, you have weak protection from the Libyan security who are weakly armed. You got the insurgents who are strongly armed. Why it took 3 weeks, I really don't know. It seems like in the other embassy bombings that we've had in East Africa in the past, the FBI was on the scene immediately. Fly teams were on there immediately. So I don't know what the delay was in this case. Only has to do with security is what I can imagine.
All right. Well, then let me go right to Gary on the phone. Gary, you were involved in embassy security. You were chief of station. You were involved in Kenya and Tanzania. How long did it take for you to get there to secure it?
I was there in 1 day. The FBI was there 5 days later.
All right. Well, that's even better than 3 weeks. But the point is that the FBI seems to always be dragging behind everybody else. Jeff?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Well, again, in this particular case, I don't know. I know in the East African bombings, Kenya and Tanzania, 5 days, there was a fly team. I thought it was there sooner than that. But in any case, I'm not sure what the reasons were in the Libyan case. It may have something to do with the misunderstanding of what was even going on there at that particular time.
It's the same as we heard in Benghazi. They didn't know what was going on in real time, as if they didn't have the drone and the video and the audio and the telephone calls. But last question. What we've got now, as I understand it, there are thousands of criminals that are breaking out of jails in Libya and in a lot of the countries in the Middle East. And so what we've got are, certainly more people who are in the business of trying to kill us and are willing to do so. Do you think, Gary, that this will make a difference in terms of the safety of Americans, or do you think this is added to the threat?
Well, clearly, when you have 1,000 people break out of prison in Benghazi, as they did this week, these are probably some of the individuals who were captured by the authorities after the attack on the embassy there. This is bad news. This is horrible. Many of these countries are not securing those people that we've returned them. And this is why we can't send the guys from Gitmo back to Yemen. They'll be out in a week. Most of the former Gitmo detainees that have been released are leading these insurgent groups across the Middle East.
All right. Now, it has the lack of American response, as I just said in my open, to Benghazi, emboldened al-Qaeda. I mean, they know we didn't respond to Benghazi, so now they're bigger than ever, even though 6 months ago they were on their knees. Jeff,
Yes,
can you answer that?
Well, I mean, an immediate response is obviously a better way to deter future criminal acts. There's no doubt about that, and that's not just in terrorism; it's in all types of crimes. I think the government needs to look into, legislative branch of government, maybe why there were delays in this particular case, and what the specific reasons were for those delays.
Okay, so when you say the legislative branch of government, you started, Jeff, by saying the FBI doesn't have to answer to Congress. Now you're saying the legislative branch of government needs to get into it. Will Jim Comey, the new head of the FBI, do you think that he will respond to the congressional request for information in the next 30 days, Jeff? Quick, yes or no?
Well, no, because they should be talking to the previous director, who's still in charge right now. How's he going to know anything? Robert Mueller needs to know the answers to these questions.
Oh, okay, and obviously he didn't answer them for 10 months. Gary, final word?
Yeah, look, we've got to respond to these things very rapidly. Sitting and waiting only encourages further attacks, and there's absolutely no excuse for not being on the ground to respond to these things immediately. And we should have pursued those individuals that attacked the embassies. And I think the administration has just dragged their feet because they were embarrassed and there's things they don't want us to know.
Sad stuff. Anyway, Gary Bernson, Jeff Lanza, thanks, guys, for being with us this evening.
Pleasure.
You're welcome.
Okay, and up next, Obama golfs during the largest closure of U.S. embassies in history. Unless the terrorists are hiding in the sand traps, what is he doing? And more Major League Baseball suspensions could make former MVP Ryan Braun's penalty look like child's play.